We're doing things a little bit differently this week. We have gotten enough emails and feedback that people want to see a little bit more education, and a lot of people know that I do give a few different talks at different events around the world, really. And so I'm going to give my talk, or a condensed version of my talk, Show Calling and Stage Management for Live Events. This is for anybody that really wants to move up to that next level. Maybe they want to become a show caller or stage manager. So let's go through the highlights, and then if you want to see the whole thing, I'll share some info at the end of where I'm going to be giving this talk in the not too distant future. Essentially, show calling, stage management, technical direction are kind of these terms that get used a couple of different ways, but we're talking about the person that's directing the event, directing the general session, and really crafting the look and feel for the audience, whether they're in the room or whether they're remote. We're going to go through three basic things that I subscribe to that are sort of the cornerstone or main pieces of what this is. And that's understanding that out of all the gear that we have, every single one of our pieces of equipment does one of three things. And then we're going to learn the two best practices of any kind of project management or stage management, which is communication and timing. And then that number one variable, which is risk mitigation, right? We know rehearsals, things like that. And then that last thing is the number one variable, which is risk mitigation, right? Being able to make sure that you've got that event coming perfectly, because a live event only happens once. So let's jump right in. We're typically talking about a room that's got a big stage, maybe lots of moving parts. If your event's being broadcast or streamed somewhere, it needs to have some sort of stage management so that it can be timed properly. It can have all the in and out pieces and elements that need to happen in the right way. And you can see here an example of what that backstage crew looks like and what you're directing as a stage manager or show caller. So the things that you need to make sure that you've got, so the reason why you would have a stage manager is if you've got multiple technical elements or on-stage actions like a color guard coming out, a CEO taking the stage that needs to then hand it off to a panel or a MC that's on stage that introduces different people. You need to have a show caller that can help move those pieces along with the crew. You've got an entire crew that's on comms, on headset, listening in, and they don't really know what to do unless you guide them as the director. When timing and timelines are critical, right? When they say the doors open at 4 o'clock, they got to open at 4 o'clock. We know sometimes that's a little bit variable, but that's the goal. When you're broadcasting or webcasting, because if you're watching the stream and there's nothing on it, people are going to change the channel. When you're engaging a remote audience or a remote panel, when you're working with a remote presenter, absolutely have somebody there to guide everybody through those pieces. When you're working with entertainment, particularly if you have riders, even speakers nowadays will have riders that will have specifics to how they want the stage set, how they want food and beverage maybe backstage, or do they want their bottle of water on the podium, or do they want that off to the side? You are the one that's in charge of all that. And then when you really need to just deliver that impactful experience. And as we've all witnessed on Saturday Night Live, the show doesn't go on when it's ready. It goes on when it's 11:30, but sometimes that's allowed us to see some of the best television out there, right? When they go wrong, when they flub things up, but you don't really want that on your event. I love that. That's a great quote from Lorne Michaels, the producer from Saturday Night Live. Ultimately, we're trying to tell a story, and if you don't have the pieces moving in the right order, in the right fashion, with the right allotted amount of time, the story's going to become disjointed, and it's not going to feel, even if you're a CFO presenting negative financial results for the quarter, you still have to make sure that the message you're putting out there for your audience is the right one they're receiving. Sometimes we think we're saying one thing, but it's not being received in the right way. And if it's not being directed, and that's what a director does, and if it's not being directed or stage managed in the right way, it can fall apart quickly. So as the show caller or stage manager, I define the technical strategy for an event, lead the event design. Usually that involves diagrams and 3D renderings and stage plots. We work with the AV company and hire or manage the AV team. We manage the onstage talent and show assets, videos, music, slides, etc. Interpreting contracts, riders, guidelines, making sure that you're working with your producer if you have a producer to make sure that anything that's contracted that needs to be on that stage is on that stage. You also lead the main stage pre-production, critical path project management to just make sure that things are moving from A to B to C to D to E along the line of the show. And if one of those things falls apart where you can't get to C, what do? A, B, D, and then back to C, having some sort of plan in place so that you can anticipate errors or faults and make sure we keep moving forward. We also direct the call. We call all the elements. We have them ready, so they're sitting in the gate, ready to push out in standby. And we also sometimes do the camera direction as well. So the first thing I want to talk about is that there's really only 3 types of equipment, and people are always like, what? Come on, Troy, there's no way. We have 10,000 pieces of gear in the warehouse. So there are only 3 types of equipment: source, processing, and output. A microphone's a source. Video that's in playback's a source. Somebody's PowerPoint presentation is a source. The camera shot from the back of the room, that's a source. All of those pieces go into something that processes those sources. We can only output one single thing, whether it's an audio or video file or lighting. So things need to be decided on what's the priority. Is it the keynote speaker or is it the panelist? Is it the video that's playing or is it the camera shot? Is it my PowerPoint slides, as you see as we've cut these in? Or is it me speaking to the camera? So we work through all those things and figure out what the best way is to tell that story. So again, everything's a source. It goes through something to decide which is what we want to prioritize in the processing. And then there's the output. Is it going to a stage? Is it going to screens? Or is it going to a web stream? Or is it maybe going to a translator? So another output would be if you have Spanish translation or some sort of other language translation on stage, certain audience members need to hear the proper channel. So making sure that you've got all that under control as well. And the main key thing that we use as stage managers or show callers is a cue to cue or a flow sheet that essentially calls out every single element as it happens. What the activity is, the cue number, this is the pre-pros or the before the show starts, but as the show starts, the cue, so we can quickly look at number 7, is that video going to play on time? And then each of the departments. We've got video, graphics, lighting, audio, and then notes. As far as even putting in what the actual dialogue is. So in here I even say, ladies and gentlemen, please find your seats. Remember to silence your cell phones. Our program will begin in just a few moments. Again, it's about getting everybody on the same page. So that's what this document, this is it, that core document that you work on, you edit right up until doors. Number 2, the best practice, and this really leads into that, the best practices around working with your AV team and your client are communication and timing. So how do we communicate these things with your typical team that's on site with you, right? You've got the key stakeholders, which are your account executive, and then your client, which are responsible for bringing you into the show and setting up the show, or responsible for food and beverage and those elements. You as a show caller, you're in charge of all of the technical elements. You've got an assistant stage manager perhaps, or an audio lead, video lead, lighting designer, maybe somebody that's doing set dressing and that sort of thing as well. And then they've got a team below each of them depending on how big the show is. But you are basically directing this level, all of your leads. Again, that adjusts a little bit if you need a direct camera as well. Some bigger shows will have a separate camera director and all they're doing is directing cameras. Because this is a podcast, we try to keep it to a shorter version. If you attend one of my in-person talks, we'll actually do some case studies where I talk about working with the Clinton Foundation, as well as Lush Cosmetics and a couple others that have been great clients of mine over the years and have allowed us to capture some of the information and share it. This one, for example, is so as a show caller, you're working with the backstage team, you're working with these video engineers, you're kind of talking through all the elements. You can see how the multi-view for video is very in-depth. We've got things that are previewed and on standby, and this is the program where we're sending it to. Graphics is coming through, and we choose which piece we want to send to the output, right? This is the processor, these are all the sources, this is where we're getting ready to send the source to the output. This is where we're outputting. And then further down the line, we keep looking at things like video controller, a shader, making sure that camera output's all matched, making sure that even further down the line, that playback is properly playing. So we've got playback, we've got backup, we've got live stream, if we're streaming it to broadcast, we need to know the time. This was an event that was on CNN while we were doing it, so we had to fit broadcast parameters and had to have it pushed out at the exact time when it was time to be received. And then again, if we're streaming it to the web, which we all are doing more and more, staying on time, staying on track, and staying on story are more important than ever. The communication and timing part, who has or who's controlling the content or that action item? What is the content or action item? Where is the content going or being output? Is this piece going to the stream or is this piece going to the screens in the room? I've done an event recently where we had a sneak peek of a new Paramount movie that was being released, and we were allowed to watch a certain piece of it. But due to copyright laws, we were not allowed to stream that piece. So as a show caller, I knew that we were allowed to play that in the room, but for the remote viewers, we had to have a second source that just said, due to copyright laws, we can't show you this feed. We will resume the program in 30 seconds. We just played a small clip from the movie. So really being aware of that. And again, that goes down to knowing the riders, knowing the contracts, and that's your responsibility as the show caller. And then why? Because we're telling the story. We're being cohesive. And how do we do it? That's us. That's the show caller. The next piece is you are also responsible for the liaison between the crew and the key event stakeholders. You're going to want to be in those meetings. You're going to want to know what those important pieces are that we're trying to accomplish during that talk or during that presentation. Is it Michael Eisner that's up on stage? Is it somebody that's, the CEO from a huge corporation that maybe there's media in the room? Those things need to be delivered impactfully and with thought. We follow that predetermined script. We know the length of all the actions. We hope we know how long the CEO is going to speak for. We hope we know how long the introduction MC is going to speak for. We know definitely how long video files are, audio files, set changes. We have to be ready if we're going from a 2-panel setup to a 3-panel setup. Is there somebody backstage that can run out that third chair while we're maybe playing a video and lights are down? And then being in charge of all the lighting changes. Lights need to come down when we're playing a video, come back up when people are walking and exiting the room. Is there any ballyhoos or any sort of lighting action that we need to do to recognize an award, for example? And again, because the show doesn't go on because we're ready, it goes on because it's time to go on. So the other things that we use for communication is standby versus go. We're always on comm. We'll say, okay, he's going to reference his PowerPoint slide, stand by the PowerPoint deck, whatever the name of it is. And when that speaker says something to reference that deck, we say go PowerPoint or go Graphics 1, so that then that goes to say on the exact word go, or some show callers use GO, so that it's the G and then that beat is the O. I sat backstage for an NHL team that was directing a live broadcast, and they use a clicker. So because there's so many cameras, and you would listen to the producer or the show caller say, camera 1, click, click, and they would cut to camera 1 on that second click. It was a little click, click. Camera 3, click, click. Camera 4, get a wide shot of the audience, click, click. Camera 6, stand by. Camera 7, take that shot of that kid screaming, click, click. It's camera 7, go back over here. So really communicating with your team to be ready with what's going to come up next. You want to test and retest files and equipment. Verify formats with the appropriate equipment. If it's a video that you want to play, test it on the machine that's going to play it, right? If it's an embedded video in PowerPoint, let's have a backup. Let's pull it out of PowerPoint, put it on our playback machine or whatever playback device you're using, and then have that ready to go in case PowerPoint fails. And then just getting everybody on the same page so we can continue telling that story in a cohesive way. The other things we want to do about the on stage are the entrances, grips and grins. That's where 2 people are walking and trading off and shaking hands. The other person's leaving the stage, 1 person's taking the stage, knowing that we need to zoom that camera out a little bit to make sure we capture 2 people, or maybe somebody's won an award and they're doing a 3-shot with the MC, the person giving the award, the person receiving the award, and the award. So being ready for that shot. And again, communicating that, making sure that we're establishing the scene with cameras, especially if we're doing broadcasts. So if we're sitting into the stream, we want to make sure that we start with a bit of a wide shot of the stage so that everybody can sort of see where the stage is and where people are in relation to one another. Then we start doing overshots and tight shots. Your mind already knows where everybody is. So it helps to create continuity and again, move the story along. Taking a look at a typical stage, you can sort of see here where it's like all these different elements. We've got RoboCams, we've got all the way across, 4 of them all the way across. There's 2 cameras at the back of the room. We've got a large screen element at the back upstage side. We've got ADA, we've got a choir, we've got an orchestra. We can have all of these elements, and it's our responsibility to keep these elements moving forward. Organizing the pieces, the source, fitting the pieces into parameters, processing, timing it all out, that's the output, and anticipating delays or challenges, which is kind of the next piece. Again, working with our show, our cue to cue or our show flow, really calling in all the pieces, making sure that where you can see here, countdown clock needs to have 5 minutes on it. We know that the pretty video presets, we want to dim the lights in the last 30 seconds of the video because there's something more specific in the video. The actual name of the video with the file name. So now is the time.mov. So we know that that's the video. If somebody loses it, we've got the original drive. We know how to search for that file exactly. National anthem.mov. We want to have the lighting to be red, white, and blue, right? Have the lights go down for the national anthem. So thinking through all those things, and again, getting everybody on the same page. This is basically just an Excel spreadsheet. There are some other products out there that will help build this for you. But if you want a copy of this, I will send it to you. You just need to email me and you can get a copy of my basic Excel spreadsheet. It has some formulas already baked into it. Make it really easy. There's tabs along the bottom for the template. And then you can just create, if you've got a lunch, breakfast, and a dinner, you can just create different tabs for that, send that to your team. You're off to the races. I was even doing a show at one point for Visit Flagstaff when I was living in Arizona, and they called me up just to come and help them produce their stakeholders meeting. That's where all the hoteliers and event companies come and hear the state of the city and the state of the area, and they really wanted to give it a little bit more touch. So they brought me up the morning of, had a bunch of microphones, and I just I hand wrote on who's going to have which microphone, how to introduce people. And so just having any sort of sheet that you can follow along, and then that was small enough I was able to lean over to my video guy and my PowerPoint, my graphics operator and my audio engineer to really make sure it came together perfectly. But I even wrote in different music that they wanted to have playing for each of their walk-ups. They each wanted a different walk-up, and then I just loaded them on my iPad via Dropbox so that I was ready to go. Basically what we're trying to say is we want to stay organized, and you want to stay calm, and you want to stay in charge, but things are always working against you. So whether it's a CEO that shows up late or a speaker, that their slides aren't working. So how are you able to keep that calm demeanor and really move the project forward, right? And it's all live. So here's just a quick video. Again, if you attend one of my talks, you get a lot more of the case studies. So more information on that to come. But here's an example of me directing Lush Cosmetics from the back of the room, and what that kind of looks like.
So Michigan. Next slide is the video. So stand by. You've got graphics A hot. Graphics B will be your backup. All right, and the video's going from graphics. Got audio. Audio's coming up. Bring the lights down. Nice and subtle. Good work. Again, I'm not sure how long this video is since it's an embedded product. I don't know how long this video is, obviously. So bring your stage watch down just a little bit as well. Just slowly fade it down. Nice, Kevin. Yeah, we'll just, as soon as I start talking again, we'll just bring the levels back up. We'll get to it. Thanks, guys.
Rehearsals. Anytime you can get the CEO or anybody that needs to be on stage, find out what kind of microphone they want. Some want an earpiece, some want a lapel, some want to use a handheld. So having that ready to go so you're not surprised when they show up backstage. Having a dress rehearsal, especially if you've got anybody playing music or any sort of performance elements, a color guard, those sorts of things. And like I said, paper tech rehearsal, and then a go or no go for all elements. As the doors are about to open, I typically ask everybody to run a system, run a video to make sure it feeds. We see it and hear it everywhere. Check the microphone, make sure we see it and hear it. Somebody walks up to the podium, tap the microphone, make sure that's working. Do a quick little light level check, make sure all the cameras are white balanced and ready to go. That's your go or no go, right? Just like they do at NASA. And if you do attend one of my classes, and I'm giving this talk several times this year, we talk about the challenges that Mariah Carey had at New Year's Eve 2017 when her in-ear monitors failed. Ways that we could have done that better, ways that the team there may have been able to do that better. And we just kind of talk through it, because when we're trying to do critical chain project management, which is any live event, where you're trying to go from A to B to C, but for whatever reason you can't get to C, are you ready with something else to come in there? Something to go and then get back to C when you fix that. A video doesn't play, do you have something you can run to and play instead or do instead and then come back to? Think about the Super Bowl when the power went out, New Orleans many years ago. They're lucky enough they could go to the broadcast truck. They can go to a studio somewhere, which is what they did. They played some commercials and then they went back once they got the power back up. But being ready for any of those things to happen. Equipment redundancies. If you're an event planner, have serious conversations with your AV team, your production team. What happens if a projector goes out? Technology is getting better, but the what if still happens. Somebody kicks out a plug. Not really much you can do if you don't have a backup in place, or at least a conversation about it so that we know what to do if it does happen. You can bring an MC back up on stage. You can have your team from the back of the room. I've often had to be that person when I'm show calling and saying, ladies and gentlemen, we've experienced some technical difficulties. Please enjoy some music while we get this sorted out, and the show will resume again in 5 minutes. Typically that's when we're trying to stream somebody in, or like I said, your CEO shows up late to take the stage. Have a backup performer or somebody else to maybe go on stage and have a conversation with the audience or with a panelist. Cut to commercial if you're doing something like that. And there was an event that we did for many years where the CEO did show up late every day on the opening keynote, so we created trivia slides because we knew he was going to be 10 minutes after everybody was in their seats. And so we had this fun trivia that just played on the screens. People loved it, and now we do that every year. And do all of this whether you're in person or virtual. So communication or timing. Last piece is, what is the action, the description of the action, and the description of the placement, and versioning. We never want to see a list like this. These are all the, there's an audio file or video file here. There's some slides here that we need to put in, and there's a PowerPoint. I have no idea what order to put this in or where this goes, so at least describe each of them so we know what it's for. And then even better, what we'll probably do is add a number to it so we know if it's an audio file, it's the first audio file that plays. If it's a video file, it's the first one that plays, 1, 2, 3, 4, right, all the way through the list. And when it comes to sending your AV company, this is the PowerPoint and it's the final, right? We all put final. Oh no, this one's the final. Let's start versioning right off the top. So if it's Troy's presentation, version 1. Then when you get on site and version 1 never changed, yeah, you guys are good. You got version 1, right? All right, we're good to move forward. If it was version 13, 14, 15, you walk in that room, even on comms, I'll be, all right, just making sure version 15 is the one we've got ready to go, because I know that was the last one via the email I got from the client. So again, we're telling a story. Being able to follow as an audience member is what we're here to do. We're organizing those pieces together. Those are the sources. We're fitting them into parameters. Which is more important, right? If you've got 2 microphones, who's speaking? That one's volume needs to be at the right level. The other one, you don't want to just hear them breathing in the background. Fitting the pieces into parameters, timing it out, anticipating the delays or challenges so that you can be ready for no matter what comes across that stage. The video doesn't play, the speaker runs late, the shark dances out of sync, another Super Bowl reference. Mariah Carey's microphone fails at New Year's, or there's a power outage, or they announce the wrong best picture at the Oscars. Again, it's attend one of my, certainly isn't a plug to attend my talk, but it is pretty in-depth. We look at a lot of the behind the scenes for the Academy Awards, a lot of the behind the scenes for more of my events, and we talk about everything it takes to be a solid show caller and stage manager for live events. Again, understanding that all of your equipment is one of 3 things. It's a source, it's part of the processing, or it's the output, what the audience is seeing. Being on top of the two most important things, communication and timing, absolutely. And in anything we do in this industry, communication and timing are key. And then the number one variable, test, rehearse, have backups, be ready for the what ifs, and have those uncomfortable conversations. And again, if you want to hear my talk, see the full talk with all the behind the scenes videos that I can't show here because it's just our podcast, take a look for when I'm speaking. We're speaking at, I can't really plug, we don't know when this is going to play. So where should I be referencing?
We could throw this up sooner so that we
We
can
should
reference
throw this
people
up, I think, to
before the lead conference.
Yeah, so maybe I'll plug that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
And then throughout the year, many other things,
So I hope you guys have learned. So, blah, blah, blah. Number one. And remember that number one thing. So again, this has been Show Calling and Stage Management for Live Events. I'm Troy Peters, Chief Experience Officer here at Seize Productions. I hope you learned something from this. The full presentation is almost an hour and a half long, and it has so much behind the scenes material. I've recorded me behind the scenes with President Clinton, working on all these Lush Cosmetics shows. And then I've got a bunch of content from Academy Awards and other big events that have had challenges or we just learned from. So I hope you've learned something from this talk, this podcast. Again, if you want to see the full version of this talk, which I've been giving for probably 5 or 6 years at all sorts of different conferences, we are actually producing our very first conference here at Seize Productions. It's the Leadership in Events and Production Conference happening on February 29th. I will give this talk with all the fun stuff that's behind it, and you can really learn what it takes to do what we do as show callers and stage managers. Again, this has just been a condensed version for our podcast, our Backstage podcast. And we hope you learned something here. There's more to come, so make sure you tune in, set those reminders the first and third Thursday of every month, and hopefully we'll see you at our conference in February. Thank you.